Noelle Scaggs. Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
So, Noelle, I heard you had some bus trouble. When you have some bus trouble, like when you have some unexpected time with the bus by the road, what do you do? What's your go-to move? Do you work? Do you sleep more? Exercise? What happens?
I mean, you just try to get to the location you're getting to, this situation, it was, the crew bus and crew had to hop on to our bus so that we could get to our hotel. Fortunately, it's on a day off and it's, not trying to get to a gig. So we kind of were a bit fortunate with that. It's
Sure.
unfortunate anytime anything happens to your mobile station and home and you have to kind of move out of it temporarily. But, we just, are kind to each other and if some of us are up and, one of the crew members needs to sleep, you can borrow a bunk and we've had times where it's happened where we had to sleep in the front lounge and like it just depends on, the circumstances, but, you just keep it moving.
But I feel like the tour manager does a lot of things, but that is when the tour manager is
Yeah.
called upon like the bat signal when something like that happens, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, if it wasn't for our incredible crew, our tour manager, our production manager, and things like that, I mean, I don't know what we would do. I couldn't imagine it.
Absolutely. So of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
so
For
of
sure.
course,
We definitely had a strong crew.
Of course. So we're with Noelle Scaggs, of course, of the Fitz and the Tantrums, co-lead vocalist, also She Rocks Award winner. We love the She Rocks Awards. Um, but Noelle,
Yeah.
let me start with this. I mean, you guys have been going on the band for 16 years, and I was doing research over the weekend, and it's so interesting because in a way it's felt like such a so quick, but on the other hand, you guys are building a legacy now, Noel. Like, do you guys talk about that with Fitz at this point? It's like, wow, we are no longer the young blood. We're like, we're leaving a lasting legacy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about it in, kind of various ways. We definitely mention it when we're on the stage. We talk about how long we've been around. I think, some of the conversations that I have with, friends outside of the band is just looking at the number of bands that we kind of came up in the industry with that are no longer really touring or not really around or, they decided to not pursue records anymore or they got dropped from their labels and we kind of hung in there for whatever reason our fans have kind of kept gravitating to us. We've been able to put out songs and continue spreading joy with our live shows and stuff, so we've been very fortunate in this, especially in this era where, everything is like TikTok driven and, for the moment concepts and nothing is really long lasting.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you the name of one artist, outside of the Kendrick Lamars and, era of music that were viral over even the pandemic that you don't even hear from them anymore, so this is a very different time and music consumption, especially amongst young people. That is a challenge, that's a challenge even as a legacy band, as a band that's building a legacy that has, a song that's evergreen, that has, we're coming up on almost 1 billion streams on Out of My League right now. And, to even be able to say that in this era is kind of crazy because not a lot of people get that opportunity that were not in the game around the time that we started.
Mm, that's very well said, Noel. But and as you were saying it, isn't it almost liberating? And what I mean is, listening to Man on the Moon and listening to some of the songwriting that even you made with like Young Days. It's as good as it's ever been. And I know you spent a lot of time here in Nashville, but your songwriting is like so deep now, Noel. So I almost like find it like the fact that like people are listening to music differently. Isn't it almost liberating for a band like you guys that you guys are like, you know what, we're just gonna do what we do. We're just gonna like approach our creativity with the way we want to approach it, not care about commercial success. And in a way, it's like the deepest like work you've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it always is about where you are in your life, you know. Speaking of a record that, would have happened after More Than Just a Dream, there's a lot of pressure there. We had two number ones on that record simultaneous. We broke records with Billboard because of that at that time. We were very still new in the major label industry as well. Reminder that we came from an indie background. We were signed at South after a South by Southwest showcase to an indie label in our hometown. And then we, made it into the major label world. It was a very, very different game for us, I think, coming into say even the third album, right? So you're trying to like navigate how do you keep the business partners happy and the radio people happy, and then how do you maintain your fan base that you've grown over this one record period of time, and how do you grow as an artist, right? So there was a lot of growing pains, a lot of things of, just trying to stay true to yourself while also trying to cater to all of these different things that were never in your way before, right? It's a very different game when you're entering out of a number one space. And I think that there's a lot of artists that have had that experience that, made or broke their career after that. Um, I think on this record, we are a lot way more comfortable with who we are. And I think we were able to execute that on the last album as well. With you know, with our Let Yourself Free record. And, I think for this period of time, Young Days had been written starting in like 2018. And then, it kind of just manifested into what it is today because of the experience that I'm having and what I'm seeing in the world. So the lyrics are way deeper because of that life experience. And I think that that's what we've always translated into our album.
Absolutely. Now, Noel, let me ask you this. And by the way, we're talking to the great Noel Scaggs of Fitz and the Tantrums. So they're going on tour across North America. Ryman's show later this month. We're super stoked. But Noel, you're always in such, and this is like a serious question. You're always in such a great emotional state, and people know it from your adventures with Scaggs account and from all the stuff you do. And obviously, your live persona is like, not many bands are as good at live as you are. But the question is, how do you stay in such peak emotional state, Noel? The world is heavy sometimes right now. And listen, it's a habit. It's like working out, it's like, I'm sure you have your days where you're angry and depressed, but your emotional home is always such full of light and joy. How have you been able to kind of grow that? Well,
It's being very discerning about the people I keep around me in my life.
mm,
Um, I think that it is very important to surround yourself with people who lift you up, even when you are feeling at your lowest.
mm,
It is also being in a band that caters, that has that mentality as well. They don't keep toxic people in their life. They focus on their families. They have friends that show up. They show up for them. And I think that at the end of the day, we as humanity are built by what we surround ourselves with. We're inspired by this kind of belief infrastructure that is often guided by the folks that you have around you. So if you're surrounded by negative people all the time, that's what you're gonna reflect in your world, you
mm.
know? I have really great support system of friends. My family has always been really supportive of me, even when they didn't think that the music, career was going to take off the way that it ended up doing. Um, but I've always been guided by this principle of what you have in your space is what you're going to reflect back to the world.
Wow. Very well said,
Um,
Noel.
yeah,
Very well said.
thank you. Yeah, it's true. I think it's true.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's leave it with this, Noel, because I could talk to you for 17 hours. But let's talk about diversified
Yeah.
stage as we wrap it up. Obviously, what a great organization that you started creates pathways to equitable opportunities for minorities and gender non-conforming individuals, the all nine yards. Um, how is that doing? These are, rough waters for many of these folks, but like you started something that is bigger than yourself. What a beautiful thing. Where are we right now in August of 2025 with your organization?
Well, sadly, I had to dissolve the organization because we weren't able to meet our financial requirements. We weren't able to receive the grant money that we needed to keep going. However, because of the way that I designed the program and that it was meant to be a kind of, a example point for companies to move into with their internship programming. So looking at internship programming is more than just the means of showing someone the way for a couple of months and then after that they're bouncing around, right? We tried to create something where everybody could learn something from literally the ground up. They knew everything about how a venue was run, from the tickets to the merch booth to concessions, management, all of this stuff, right? Like we try to navigate the live industry in a way that people could figure out, like, well, if I don't make it as a sound engineer, also have this other tool where I actually like box office and I love ticket sales. So this is an opportunity for me to maybe find a career in the ticketing market, be it Ticketmaster, be it whatever it is, right? So we tried to kind of design the program based upon making sure that every single intern that we had, every single person coming out of our apprenticeship program ended up with an actual role
Mm.
doing something. And I'm really happy to say that we had a 100% success rate. We were able to partner with some of the largest companies in the business, Live Nation included, Venue Nation included, and all of our people are still working. They're still doing things. That's a credit to the folks that were in management that really believed in what we were doing and taking it seriously. And I believe that they still have those internal programs running.
Amazing. Noelle, Scaggs, you said it all. We're super excited to see you at the Ryman. The new album, Man on the Moon, in my humble opinion, your best, is out now. And thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. Click here to subscribe and get the latest from the show, including exclusive behind the scenes footage and once in a lifetime performances. And as always, thank you for making J Rock Concerts Media part of your day.